a top 3 best tactical rifle Cold War weapons tier list that you gotta be using this very second, and trust me, it's not gonna disappoint. Ladies and gents, my name is Xander, aka Diaside, and in this video it's all about tactical rifles. And with season 3 here, we got some new tactical rifles, so it's time to update this list, and man do I gotta say that some of these are so Gucci and Versace, and we're gonna find all that out right now. Now the only thing that you gotta do is just to simply sit back, relax, grab that Mountain Dew, and remember to eviscerate that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Let's jump right into the video. Arriving in the number 3 spot is an oh-so-classic weapon that's just about in every single Call of Duty, and it's known as the M16. As an all-around weapon, you really can't go wrong, as the M16 is always doing 50 per body and then doing 70 for a crit. Now remember, the M16 is always a 3-burst weapon, and so that means that really the crits don't even matter in the slightest, because as long as you're laying those 3 shots for the body shots, you're always going to get that 1-shot burst as long as you're in 21 meters. As soon as you go outside that, that's when things change. But as long as you're in that 21 meter range, this thing's then going to have an optimal TTK and a body shot TTK at exactly 0.132 seconds. Yes, you heard me right, I said 0.132 seconds, and that is just mind-boggling. I mean, that's faster than freaking Zeus can toss his lightning bolt from Mount Olympus, and before you even know it, you're zapped, gone, adios, ciao, bye-bye. Now, the one downside to this weapon is that even though it happens to have that astounding optimal TTK and body shot TTK, it is going to have a terrible burst delay between bursts. And to be exact, that's going to be 0.26 seconds. Essentially, that means that if you happen to miss one bullet in that first burst, you're going to have to wait another 0.26 seconds and then fire that next burst, and by that time, you already might be down yourself. As far as consistency stuff goes, this thing is going to be quite consistent, at least for those first couple of bursts, and also keep in mind that it's going to be vertical for the recoil, which is marvelous, and the only thing that's going to deviate is maybe 5 degrees to the left at the very end of the magazine. However, as long as you're laying those first couple of bursts, you're not going to have to worry about this in the slightest, but the one thing that you're definitely going to have to worry about is that ADS speed. The ADS time for this as a base level is only at 0.35 seconds, and that's quite a bit of time, especially for somebody like myself who likes to play in a hyper-aggressive format. If that's you, just be on the lookout for this, but as long as you're laying that first burst, this thing's going to absolutely annihilate, decimate, and eradicate every single player in your path, just like Exodia saying obliterate! Making itself known in the number 2 spot is the DMR-4T. This thing has been so dominant, not just in the Cold War environment, but also in Warzone, even though it's still gotten nerfed quite a few times. Luckily for us, this thing's always going to be doing 58 for a body, 81 for a crit. In other words, this thing's then going to always take 3 body shots, which is then going to correlate to a 0.3 second body shot TTK, but if you're laying those crits, it's only going to take 2 crits, and then that goes down to 0.15 seconds for an optimal TTK. I know it's absolutely astounding, but arguably one of the most important things that this thing has going for it as a strong pro is that at any range, all this thing needs is 3 shots for a body. Yes, you heard me right. Any range, this thing just simply needs 3 shots for a body shot, and that's just amazing. On the flip side of this though, you have to understand that this thing's recoil pattern is very inconsistent, and in reality, it's actually going in a clockwise pattern. So if you're not laying those first couple of shots, this thing becomes incredibly inconsistent and goes all over the place, and that's one of the reasons why it didn't make the number 1 spot, because of that inconsistency. As far as the ADS speed goes, once again, it's not that great as it's only at 0.325 seconds, and so you're definitely going to need some attachments here to increase that ADS speed, especially if you happen to play in a hyper-aggressive format. But other than that, this thing is going to be dominant in PvP, and for those of you that like that 1-shot semi-auto weapon, this thing right here is without a doubt your number 1 go-to semi-auto tactical rifle. You're going to be saying to players, thank you, check please, I'm here all week. At long last, we have finally reached our number 1 spot, and the weapon that makes this spot is the Carv 2. Why is it the best among all the tactical rifles in this entire game? Well, let's get into it. This thing does 39 for a body and 54 for a crit, but what that then means is that this thing's then going to take 4 body shots, which is correlating to actually 2 bursts to down somebody. But on the flip side of this though, it does happen to have enough critical damage output to do just 3 crits, still downing 1 player in 1 burst. To be more exact, it does precisely 0.35 seconds for a body shot TTK, but if you're landing those 3 critical headshots, it can do a 0.133 second optimal TTK, and that's just outrageous. Now remember about the M16. What was the major downside to this thing? Its in-between burst delay was 0.2 seconds, but with this Carv.2, it's half of that at 0.125 seconds. Yes, you heard me right as I said half at 0.125 seconds, and thus, this thing is incredibly consistent. Not just this, but the weapon's recoil is incredibly compact initially, but then gradually as time goes on, it kind of disperses like a shotgun pellet spread, but that's only if you're firing at full max rate of fire and you're going through the entire magazine. Speaking of the magazine, it's actually got 45 bullets in the entire magazine, and that's more than enough for you to actually get 1, 2, 3, maybe even 5 players, no problem whatsoever, without ever having to reload. The reason why I mentioned that is because the reload speed, I won't lie, it's atrocious at 2 seconds almost on the dot. And so in reality, you never want to reload, and you only want to reload when you're in cover. In addition to this, one of this weapon's glorious overall pros is that it has an overall range at 45 meters, and so you're not going to have any kind of damage fall until you happen to hit 45 meters. And so this thing can be used in a hyper-aggressive format, not just in close range proximities, but also at cross-map distances if you so choose. Despite that, one downside to this, like every other tactical rifle, is that its ADS speed is only at 0.35 seconds. So once again, you're going to have those attachments that increase this ADS speed. But as long as you're doing that, this Carv.2 is going to be the most consistent tactical rifle that you will ever have, making enemy players a little bit salty. Now of course, we can't have a top 3 list without having at least one honorable mention, and the one that makes this spot is the Type 63. This Type 63, I believe, is the first tactical rifle that you actually unlock, but with that being said, it's a very close secondary to the DMR. If you like semi-auto weapons, the Type 63 is going to be a great substitute for the DMR until you unlock it. And at the same time, it's going to be quite fun to use and very consistent, and overall actually a little bit more lenient than the DMR. Now that you've listened to all my fluff carrots trash shenanigans, and of course what the honorable mention is, I'm dying to hear what you guys are thinking. Do you agree with this list? Do you not? Do you think something else should be in a different place? If so, what is it? Whatever it is, I want to hear about it down in the comment section below, and you always are going to know that I'm going to respect your opinion, and that is something that I can guarantee. That's pretty much all I've got for you as of right now, Diaslayers, and so as always, GG, TNT.